Welcome to the Jazz Flight Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jazz Flight Podcast. Most of the time, I'm Darrell Scott. We'll get to the aliases at another date and why I don't always use my real name. My guest today is a young man. He's got an interesting story, which I'm going to kind of hold off till the end. I want to talk about a malady he had. I'll call it that. But he plays. He's good. You got to find this guy. And we'll get to how you can find him and follow him and all that sort of stuff. And he's got a great personality. And I think that's the thing I find in the artists that I interviewed. We found out about their personalities and some of their history and how they got started and so forth and so on. So that's what we're going to do. So the man on the other screen, because if I point, I don't know if I'm pointing to the right side. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Will Donato. Will, welcome to the Jazz Flight Podcast. Thank you for being on. How are you?
Thank you. You know, if there's a voice transplant, I want your voice. Can we work that out?
Well,
I don't know
if we transplant my voice, then what am I supposed to use?
I don't know, but I don't have my glasses on. Is this Barry White or
no? This is not. This
Teddy Pendergast.
So here a real quick story about that. Don't get me wrong. My sixth grade year, the summer of my sixth grade going into seventh grade, I went through what men call puberty.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, in sixth grade, I sang second soprano.
Wow, I don't believe that's awesome.
And then that summer, I didn't go outside. My voice would crack. I had all these issues. My mom is like, "Why are you staying in the house?" Because of this voice thing. So whatever. And I realized that Barry White smoked. I'm not a smoker.
Yeah.
So there's all these things going on. So, well, enough about me. Let's talk about you. How did this musical journey of yours begin?
Well, you know, like you, I've had the pleasure, and I mean that sincerely, of getting to know so many artists. And I'm very fascinated by what we would call trajectories. And like you said, with all the artists you've interviewed, the trajectories are fascinating to me. You know, there's like the template that I call the school template, where somebody puts an instrument in your hand in third grade and you go all the way to being a band geek and marching in football half times in cold, snowy cities like Denver. Then there's the trajectory that I found that it's interesting in smooth jazz, like a gospel worship leader. You know, like my friend Nate Mitchell was like a gospel guy. And you know, I honestly, as a guy that kind of is West Coast, I'm not really. I've played in worship teams, and I've really loved it. But the trajectory where there's a guy that, well, you got to play, Nate, you got to play drums this week. Why? Bob's not here. Okay. And those guys are fascinating to me, the gospel guys, and they're so freaking good. So that trajectory is so fascinating to me. So mine's the typical, you know, mom and dad put a clarinet in your hand in third grade and you go all the way. The funny thing about my story is, Darrell, that template where folks have to coerce you to practice.
Right.
My folks had to knock on my door. Okay, you can stop practicing now.
So you're just kind of the opposite.
The squeaky clarinet, you know, how many times have you heard the story where my mom wants me to practice? Like, they literally had to make me stop. I'm not kidding. And then on family trips, I would literally have my clarinet in the back seat, because you're only like 4'8" when you're in third grade. I would literally practice in the back seat I mean, play, but I would just find it interesting. And then this is going to sound very ADD, but for some reason, even in fifth grade, if I missed a day, I would double up the next day. And I didn't know at that age, with all these internet, YouTube time management things, I might have been ahead of the curve on time management. But
Hmm.
I just thought, well, I missed a day. I should do it twice.
Wow.
So funny, isn't that funny? Hello, it's just
I
that was me.
don't take this the wrong way. I'm glad we grew up in different households.
Yeah.
Don't know if I could have taken the whole practice thing all this time. How,
Yeah,
now you're a saxophone player, correct?
saxophone.
How did you get to the saxophone from the clarinet?
I really love that you asked that question because, you know, um, as an Italian growing up in Italian households, you know, we did not necessarily, my family they're musicians, I would say in quotes, my mom, my sisters, my father, not so much, but very supportive. So we didn't really have what I would call like R&B music in the house, but we did from just being on the radio. But I literally was in my father's car one day and I heard me and Mrs. Jones on the
Hmm,
radio
Billy Paul.
and it crushed. And then I heard that same week Don Myrick playing the original solo in Reasons.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it was, Darrell, like this Italian kid. I thought I need to play a saxophone. And my father had access to a really funky beat up saxophone from a friend of his. And I just took to it. And, I switched in like high school and I was in Colorado at this point. My father was in the army. So we lived everywhere twice. That's probably why change and adapting is never a problem for me. I can move. I'm not wedded to anything in particular. And I grew up on army bases till we were 18. And our friends, when we would play kick the can in the middle of the army bases, our friends were Jewish, Muslim, Cuban, green,
Hmm.
black, white. We didn't know anything but a bag of M&Ms. I didn't know anything but multicultural. I didn't know it. And then when we moved off base when I was 18, in like a Colorado neighborhood, you don't even know your neighbors. You sort of don't look, to the right or left. But that diversity for me was just that's what we grew up with.
Hmm.
My father's employees, my work friends, and my playmates. So, um, but that was sort of the genesis of getting to the saxophone and having this sort of fluid background of just religions and cultures. And I feel real grateful for being an army brat. Very much so.
Let me ask you this, because to me, I've been involved with jazz, I don't know, since the late 70s. Don't do the math like you told me.
Yeah,
Um, but it seems as though the most popular instrument was the saxophone. So I always ask saxophone players, how did you determine not to be like everybody else and develop your own style?
such a great question. I love that question. You know, there's, it's funny because you and I are on the same side of the camera. Um, I love podcasts and I
Hmm.
love interviews. Um, and lately, I've been really fixated with David Sanborn because of his death. It really
Hmm.
affected me. But
Right.
that thing about finding your voice,
Hmm.
you can't help but loving your influences. From an early age, my influence was Grover
Hmm.
and Sanborn. I'm an
Hmm.
alto player, basically.
Okay.
And I always feel like, Darrell, I walk the line between the Maceo Grover school
Hmm.
and the sort of rocked out Sanborn thing. I kind of in the middle, the warmth of those guys and the edge of Sanborn. But I also had jazz studies in LA and I always loved Charlie Parker. I was buying Charlie Parker records when I was 14 and a half. I bought a record when I was in Europe. I went with a youth band to Europe as an orchestra. And here I am playing classical music, but I'm in the record shops looking for Charlie Parker records.
Right.
Who
Right.
does that at 14?
Right. Yes.
And then I had jazz studies. So I really loved Sonny Stitt, the keyboard Tommy Flanagan's, Oscar Peterson. I grew up with that too, loving that music. Um, I sometimes, I haven't said this on a radio show before, but I sometimes feel guilty that this beautiful business that we're in, I would say contemporary jazz, smooth jazz, you don't always get to play bebop or straight ahead
Right.
for your fan base.
Right. How did you mesh all this? You've got Sonny Stitch, you've got Oscar Peterson, you got David Sanborn, you got Grover Washington Jr., Tommy Flanagan. You have all these different, I'll call them silos of music.
Yeah.
How do you first of all mix that into your style and still stay in the smooth jazz contemporary vein?
Well, I really love your questions because like I said, I love that I'm on the other side of the fence sometimes. And so you're going to really laugh. So I got signed. I was on MCA Records when I was 25 with a reggae band, a ska band. And so we were a big deal. It was a big ska band in Los Angeles. You could Google it, and if they were called, we were called the Untouchables, and we were signed by the same company that had it was called Stiff Records out of England. So having those influences, being part of this incredible two-tone ska band that was doing touring the world. In fact, our friend Jeff Koshua was in
Hmm.
that band with me occasionally. We would trade the chair if I couldn't do it. So Darrell, I was sort of this guy with all this like straight ahead knowledge and that sensibility where you sort of just stay on the mic and close your eyes. And then all of a sudden I'm thrust on this stage where there's these killer entertainers in front of me, dreadlock guys with little pork pie hats and three-button suits, planking through audiences and college campuses like rushing the front of the stage. And I'm thinking, what is this?
Hmm.
So then I thought, wow, I started to be aware of entertainment. But there's videos. I'll send you a video off camera, but you'll laugh. I look like a little Tom Cruise with fluffy black hair and sunglasses, doing my Italian guy trying to ska. But I would just watch these guys entertaining, and it was amazing to me. So I thought, no, there you go, another variable, straight ahead Rastas and dreadlocks that I love dearly flying off the stage, and I started becoming a showman because of these guys. You know, um, people want to have fun when they come to a
Right.
concert.
Yes.
They want to have fun. And I'm sorry about the convoluted map I took, but having that love for straight ahead, seeing smooth jazz emerge, and then being part of this extremely outgoing band um, that crushed every night, Darrell. We would go to England, and these guys, it was like a pop gig back then. And um, so I've always been branded as an entertainer or showman,
Hmm.
and because I love people.
Right.
I don't do it to pull focus. I do it to take, kind of like Nick Coleone. If you watch Nick, he didn't go out in the crowd to pull focus. He went out to crowd to bring his guitar close to the people.
Right.
If he sees Darrell and his wife, he sees you, brings his guitar to you, and it's not like, hey, look at me, but I see you and your wife. Thank you for
Hmm.
being here. It's always like that kind of approach. But man, that was the melting pot of all the styles and the variables. But you know what? I loved it all. I'm like, okay, as far as arriving at a style, you know, I loved Grover and I loved Sanborn for alto. Um, and I was always aware, don't do too much of each one. Find your
Hmm.
voice. And I think sometimes, I'm very proud of my discography. I have over 100 original tunes written that are on iTunes. I think your song selections sort of define your path, because your song selections are also, like we all know, Songbird is Kenny G.
Right,
Gerald's got so many signature songs.
right.
Kirk's signature songs. I think that really helps the roadmap of your artist originality. I
Hmm.
hope that made sense.
Yes.
You know, I see a lot of these kids on YouTube that can play their butts off, and I go on their websites. And I'm like, God, this guy's amazing. He's 1 year old with playing giant steps, and then you go on their websites. They have no gigs. They don't write any original music. So I'm thinking, well, that can't be good. You have to have some outlet for your expression with all this talent. Otherwise, you have this wonderful show. Um, you know, Otherwise you just be a really outgoing guy that gets to have a beer with Gerald and myself. But this sort of defines your passions and it distills it into an endeavor. I hope that made sense. But
Yeah.
I think the songs help you shape your. We talked about Jeff Ryan, who I just absolutely love. And he's just building a nice discography. Adam Hawley, these guys are just great. They're building a body of work,
Okay.
and
Let's do this. Let's take an opportunity now to listen. Trying to think which one I want to pick. Let's do Laws of Attraction. So we're going to listen to Laws of Attraction by our guest today on the Jet Flight Podcast, Mr. Will Donato. That's Laws of Attraction by our guest today, Will Donato. Well, you mentioned this hodgepodge, this collective group that you have of all the different styles. But yet, somewhere in your career, you hung out with a guy who went to my high school, Darrell, and you played behind another big-haired guy, Richard Marx. So
yeah.
once you take all of this stuff and kind of pour it into the bowl, do, what do you get out of all of this? What is then you? What are you doing?
The funny thing about saxophone, we're sort of like this stealth guy. I think Gerald and all your other wonderful friends, saxophone doesn't really get branded as if I played rock guitar, I can't just, you can, but the saxophone enables you to sort of cut through a whole swatch of styles. You have your King Curtises, you have your electronica, you have country, like a Boots
Mhm.
Randolph. Of course, you have R&B and gospel, but the saxophone literally lets you sort of be this stealth ninja. And you can sort of, I think about drummers a lot, the stuff they must see from the back of our heads and all their gigs, they have access to almost every genre and every niche. And I think the saxophone really gives you a wide range of things to delve into. And that, you know, like I love this thread that we're on. I never really thought about this, selecting a direction from all these influences is daunting to somebody else.
Right.
For us, for you picking guests, you just love these guys. They could be pink, white,
Yeah.
Asian,
Doesn't matter.
brown. I love this music, and that's the common thread is the
Right.
passion for it. But I never thought about it like that. But on one minute I got a mullet like Dave Koz in the 90s. Let me do this, Darrell. I had a mullet and I was
Oh,
wearing cowboy boots in a Richard Marx video. And the next minute I'm playing with Keith Sweat and Gerald Levert, loving it in downtown Los Angeles in a party atmosphere. But I think the saxophone is like a calling card that lets you just kind of, uh, who are you? I don't know you. I have a saxophone. Come on in.
right.
Okay. We'll make it work.
Nice. Nice. How much fun are you having during all of this? I mean, because it's almost like you go to a gig and I got to wear this hat, I got to wear this hat, and it's a different hat everywhere you go. How's that? How do you adjust to that?
So you said something earlier about some of the stories that you've accumulated in the business. I don't know if it was just the army brat thing. You're talking to a guy who is never cynical. I like variables, and nothing. You'll never hear, you'll never hear something disparaging. You'll never hear something that makes me feel like, oh, Darrell, this business, I hate it. I'm not that guy. I adapt, and when the music delivery system changed, you know,
Mm.
I thought, well, that's part of it. We do the job. Part of our thing in this creative endeavor is we have to do the job. Okay. Oh wow, the new variable changed. Nobody has CD players anymore. All righty then. Well, that was part of my income on the road. Okay. Well, the job just got interesting. Let's do this.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So, sorry about the circuitous thing, but I always tell my friends I must have been dropped on my head as a baby. Long flights, cancellations. You know, it doesn't bother me. I saw an interview with Jerry Seinfeld. He's a billionaire. We know he's
Hmm.
a billionaire. He still does gigs. He
Right.
plays at the casinos near you and I. He said a billionaire who could just travel around in a hovercraft and he goes, I can't wait to touch my luggage in my closet and take my luggage out and pack my dumb toothbrush and my rolled up socks. I'm thinking, wow, if I was a billionaire, I'd buy an island so I could have Darrell and my buddies come over
That's
and
fine.
drink mai tais. But he loves the job. He likes the craft.
Right.
And I love it. I love the craft. I love, I'm the most laid back traveler. If I have a flight delay a day before, then that means I can watch comedy on YouTube for 4 hours. You know,
You are truly unique, and I really mean this unique individual. Once again, let's take a moment to listen to "What It Takes" by Will Donato
oh, I
on the
love the
Jazz Flight
song.
Podcast. That's "What It Takes" by our guest today on the Jazz Flight Podcast, Mr. Will Donato. Well, the other thing I found interesting in our earlier conversations is you are a cancer survivor. First of
Yes.
all, talk about how that affected you because it was throat cancer, correct?
Yeah. Not good for a sax player.
And not good for a sax player. So
Or anybody.
how do you deal? It's affecting your life. You've got to pivot, so to speak.
Yeah, that's
Talk
so
about that time in your life.
well, I don't want to tear up because the stuff is still, emotional to me, but I had a lump on my throat, and you know how our beautiful wives are. Would you quit playing with that thing? Go get it checked. Quit playing with that thing. Okay,
You've
I'm
been to
being
my
heckled.
house.
I'm being heckled with love.
Hmm.
So I went to a doctor January 16th, 2010. And he said the most interesting phrase to me. It was at Eisenhower in Palm Springs. This is what he said: I have a concern for cancer. I have a concern for cancer, is what he said. And then that prompted a whole series of doctor visits and, a little bit of fear because, saxophone player throat. So then I just started. The first doctor I went to was old school Darrell. It was the kind that
Hmm.
cut your whole face up with scalpel and knives. And then I thought, this can't be good for being a sax player.
Right, right.
And I told you on the phone before we were recording, I wasn't worried about aesthetics. Did I not want to look horrible? Yeah. Did I not want to lose my hair? Yeah. But I wanted to live.
Hmm.
So then my father said, "There's a guy that does laser surgery in Arizona, laser protocol." And I went over there and met the best doctor I could have imagined. He said, "You're a good candidate for this. We can eradicate the cancer." You know, when I hear about our mutual kind of friends that have like pancreatic cancers and all that,
Mm-hmm.
my heart really breaks because to me, I don't know why I think this way. That feels very inside.
Mm-hmm.
Throat cancer, there's sort of a thing like, hey, Darrell, see that spot there?
Right.
You can sort of see it. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, but like the bad mechanic that I am, if I can see a cracked part of my engine, I go, that doesn't look good.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And I just felt like, I could think I could almost see what's going on. I couldn't see the lymph nodes, all that stuff, but you know, I started doing this thing. There's a lot of humor in this stuff too, because I like this newfound confidence that we all have. You telling your wife, "Step aside, sweetie. Give me 24 hours with the internet, and I'm gonna find my own cure on the internet."
Right. Yes. Yes.
And then by then, your wife, you got a tinfoil hat on. You're using apricot seeds, and your wife's like, "What did you do?" "I cured my cancer." "Well, you might want to go to a Western doctor." Just for the hell of it. I'm just saying.
Right. Right.
And then also, I mean this sincerely. I'm kind of funny with Facebook. I don't like putting some of my frailties ever on Facebook.
Right. Yes.
I wasn't the guy wearing the hospital gown. Hey, here I am today. Nobody knew I was going through this, but 4 or 5 people in my family.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want people to call me up and go, "Oh, can I carry you on the stage?" I wanted people like you to still go, "Hey, what are you doing, knucklehead?"
Right.
"I'm doing good." I wanted to keep that sort of a lightness in my life, so nobody knew. So I was really on the down low about it, and I did it for self protection and self preservation. I knew I had a surgery date, which was April 16th, 2010, at the Mayo Clinic. But the people that did know Darrell, oh my God, the good hearted TMI. It could be like, "Hey, Will, it's Darrell. My wife has this recipe. You get a crock pot and a bunch of vegetables. Okay, let me add this to my list."
Right. Yes. Yes.
My daughter's calling me up. "Have you thought about going to TJ?" And there's this. I'm like, "Honey, can I just get the life saving surgery? I'm
Right.
I'm ready. I'm ready." And everybody's so good hearted. But I thought, can I just go do the life saving surgery now?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel really grateful that I went on this journey because it makes me very empathetic about other people going through this. And, you know, if I'm at a CD table and you mentioned that your uncle's going through a cancer or something, I'm very engaged. I'm
Mm-hmm.
fully engaged. I'm listening. I'm asking what kind of cancer, you know.
Okay. You. This is one of those conversations that doesn't need a time limit. I could talk to you about a whole bunch of things, uh, and just about life and less about music. You're a class act. You're a great guy. And what I also want to have happen is I want people who are listening to be able to follow you. So, do you have a social media presence?
I do. I have a really good consultant that I'd like to introduce you to too, if you ever need that. I have this theory that everybody needs their own millennial. We all need to have a millennial. Because you and we're doing grown folks stuff. Sometimes I
Yeah,
tell my wife, I don't have any more room for another learning curve.
exactly. Yes, yes.
I'm going to tell you a story. I've not shared this with you because I love anybody else, but I love you. I have had friends that come up to me, "Man, you're really active on Twitter." And I say, "I am?
Because it's,
I am
yeah,
a Twitter guy." Shh.
okay, not a
I,
problem.
it's funny. By 9:30, I've seen all the Will Donato covers. I've seen all the Will Donato stuff that I can stomach, and I love my career. But I'm not an all about me guy. But yes, I have willdonato.com. I have Facebook. I have Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
Oh, silly.
They tell me.
Right.
But I have Robert McLean from the Sundial Agency, and
Hmm.
I say he does my smart stuff. Um, life is so busy. I don't want to stare at a screen all day. I'm sort of like you. We know life before
Right.
and we know life after. And
Right.
sometimes I have to tell my friends I'm going analog today.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm not, I don't get my self-worth from scrolling through a screen, and it's very addictive.
Hmm.
You get a lot of dopamine rushes, but I'm so old school still that I just need to put it down. I really do.
You
And
you
it's
you
hard.
you can't see the room I'm in. R&B and pop CDs there, jazz CDs there,
Love it.
and four. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you guys had it. Peaches crates full of albums.
I love
Um,
that.
and
I
and,
love
and
albums.
that's just what I do. All right, you got to
I
run.
love them.
I'm
Well, you
not
know
going to.
what?
What?
We could take a little more time if you want to do one more little area because I've got a little reprieve. I'm getting a little text. So, but yeah,
Okay. Here's the thing. You also do a podcast.
yes.
Will Donato and friends.
Smooth Jazz Live Radio dot 365. I do it with my producer Jack Cohen. A lot of folks in the industry know Jack because he just love like you. He loves this. He'll go to Spaghettinis with his camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like an old school patron that just loves the format,
Mm-hmm.
and he does a lot of the heavy lifting. He finds the guests. Like you, because you're a great guy. People will take your phone call. Sure,
Hmm.
I heard great things about you. Jack gets the best guests from Rick Braun to all the newbies. And, I really love it. I really enjoy it. I don't do the video component, and I think you're a stud for doing it. I go old school. Like I can barely, get my phone on to talk. But, I love it. I like curating other people's careers. I'm not an artist that does all about me.
Right.
I will go on Facebook and say, "Oh my God, you got to hear Gerald's new album," or
Right.
"You got to
Yes.
hear my competitors." I guess you would say they're not to me, but um, I like lifting people over a fence. I
Mm-hmm.
like curating other people's success. That's
Yeah.
how I roll.
The funny thing about this is what I do. I don't do this. I'm in the Cleveland market.
Yeah,
There's no the radio station went dark.
yeah,
Um, venues closed. The venues that are large enough to have your concert or everything are not doing them. There's one place it's an outdoor facility. They did one jazz concert over the summer, one, and I'm like,
yeah,
seriously?
yeah,
We've got another one. They might do two. I'm trying to bring this back.
yeah,
Now, granted, if I could fragment my listeners, I'm not sure how many are from Cleveland, but don't get me wrong, I don't care. What I
yeah,
care about is getting the music out there, getting people to know Will Donato, to getting to know whoever.
yeah.
As while we're talking, uh, Marcus Anderson's brother texted,
Oh, I
when
love
can I come
Marcus.
on? So we'll talk to him once we're done. So it's all about getting the music out there because years and years ago, I did a jazz radio show, Sunday night, 7 to midnight, called Jazz Flight. How ironic.
I remember
Um,
seeing that.
and it was the number one show on Sunday night from 7 to midnight. We were at
Oh,
Akron. They
love
used to
it.
have a study group, Cleveland State. It was everywhere, and it was huge. And that's where I got to know several of you artists. So
Yeah,
now that I'm doing this, some people remember, some people, you kind of have to jog their memory or whatever.
yeah.
But everybody's, I'll say, a fan. So we're trying to increase numbers, trying to get more people. Um, and just to do that, I greatly appreciate you taking the time
Oh,
to be
I
on
had a
the show.
blast.
We're, and I reserve the right to be able to call you back, and we can set up
Always.
something different and talk about something, a new release or something you got going on and all that sort of stuff. But for me, this is fun. And I'll
I
tell you
love it.
something. Okay, so we're going to go because I'm going to tell you one more thing. All right, folks, thank you for listening to the Jazz Flight Podcast. If you want to, at the end of this, there's a button called subscribe. Subscribe. If you want to just friend it, let me know. If you got messages, you want to talk to me, um, thank you, Susan, and I can't remember her last name. Um, she sent me something, and we're getting that guest scheduled. But that's what all of this is about. It's about getting this music back out there because I think I didn't grow up in a jazz household. I became a jazz
Yeah.
fan And when I tell people the things, I love Ahmad Jamal's Ponciana. I just love that song.
Ooh, I
I,
love
I,
it too.
I love,
Wow.
there's some Miles Davis stuff. There's some early
Ooh.
Stanley Turner. There's all this stuff. And I don't think everybody understands that. So, okay, enough about me talking. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you. Join us next week for
Thank you,
more,
Darrell.
not a
I had
problem,
a
more.
blast. I had a blast.
Thank you. More of the Jazz Flight Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flight Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.